start by saying that I'm not opposed against the bond. I'm just a little concerned about the approach that the board has taken about going on this bond. First of all, I don't think the board or the district has been open about what's still outstanding on the previous bond, the 2002 bond of $75 million, of which we still owe $79 million. Secondly, I'm concerned about the fact that page 1 of the proposed resolution indicates that it's not going to exceed the 2.5% cap imposed by Education Code 15270. But yet on Exhibit A, page A3, it talks about bonds may be issued in excess of the 2.5%. And also I'm concerned about page A3, or Exhibit A3, the bond project list. It specifically a statement that says listed projects will be completed as needed at a particular school or facility according to board established priorities. I'm extremely concerned about that statement because several meetings that I attended talked about board priorities, talked about voter priorities, and I'm assuming that's the survey that was done, and about LCAP priorities. But never, at least I don't recall hearing anything about the professional consultant that was hired. An engineer. What does that engineer recommend as priorities? At the last meeting on June 9th, there was a matrix presented, and that matrix did not address the consultant's recommendations. It addressed the board wishes, it addressed the voters' wishes, and it addressed the LCAP wishes. What did the professional engineer think we need at our schools? Thank you.
Good evening, I'm LA County. It has been said by a couple of folks in the room that the Rosedale school issue is separate from the new school bond issue up for discussion. I would beg to differ on that matter. First of all, the taxes that we pay, and that all Azusa residents pay, but including those of us who bought new homes here, a portion of our tax base goes to the Azusa Unified School District. Our additional taxes through the Mellow Routes also go for education in the Azusa Unified School District. The new school that we would like to see built, that has been committed to us, is also to be part of the Azusa Unified School District. The developer money that they have defaulted on that we would like to see enforced, and we would like to see the school board take a strong stance on making sure that committed monies are brought into this city and to the school, is for the Azusa Unified School District. Any issue related to Azusa's Unified School District or related to a school in Rosedale are intertwined, and we see them as the same. It has been said also that there aren't many children in Rosedale. I encourage you to come into our neighborhood. There is a baby boom. There are strollers everywhere. There are children living in Rosedale. There's not an accurate count of how many children are living there. But, you know, there are homes, 4, 5, 6 bedrooms in Rosedale. Why did we come to Rosedale? To raise our families and also to educate our children. So please take into consideration the needs of the population that is already here, as well as the needs of the population, not only also the money, but also the talent that hopefully that we can bring into the city of Azusa and hopefully we can contribute further to the educational goals of Azusa Unified School District. Moving into a bond initiative, I'm sure that there is a driving factor in terms of need, but under the current circumstances and what we know about the bond issue, as well as the outstanding issues with the school and the need to enforce the agreements with the developers, there is an opposition coalition. That is a very difficult and risky environment in which to initiate a bond initiative. And it would be an unfortunate opportunity to not get the funds that you need for your school and for the district. So I highly encourage you to take a step back to figure out what the solutions are that encompass all of the residents of the community, so that we can find out resolutions. Do we want a school in Rosedale? Absolutely. Is that the only answer? Maybe not, but there needs to be open communication and analysis of what the solution is to use the funds, to gain the funds that are already committed, and to be fair to all the residents and all the kids of this community. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Azusa and LA County, and I've looked extensively at the bond measure, the proposed bond measure, and it looks like it's for $92 million, but it does not mention a rate that we would be paying on that money. It's possible that we could pay $400 million on a $92 million bond. I don't know. We don't know any information. We weren't provided with any of that information. There's also not a budget. There's not a budget for specific renovations. There's not a budget for the proposed stadium. We don't know what exact work would be done. There aren't any guarantees for any of it to be done according to the bond, the way that it's currently written. To me and to many of the members, neighbors, the community in Rosedale, this bond looks similar to a blank check. You know, there's $45 million missing right now. So we have reservation on who would manage this $92 million if it were to pass tonight and if it were to pass in the November budget. My main concern that has not been addressed is the 5 schools that were not touched in the last bond in 2008. It seems like the project may have been mismanaged. And the Rosedale school contract and the school itself has definitely been mismanaged. So there seems to be a theme, which is great, that Azusa Unified would like to attract new students in the San Gabriel Valley. But perhaps we should start with attracting Rosedale students. Look at Hum, look at Azusa. I don't think that asking Rosedale parents to pay for additional taxes, $92 million, without building a school or even resolving or having any concrete answers regarding the school seems like an outreach program. It seems like a really bad public relations idea, which seems to be a problem that the board has also discussed in the past. It doesn't look like a good strategy. Azusa Unified will have a difficult time thriving unless they do right by Rosedale. The bond issue is related to the Rosedale school. As my husband Zephyr mentioned, they are intertwined and we're all connected. So, thank you.
I was one of the 400 people that were contacted on the phone by this survey company that the board hired. And I was told that the bond initially was going to be $75 million. Now it's $92 million. I was also told that the bond measure would cost homeowners $65 for every $100,000 of your current market value of your home. Today, I'm reading on Facebook that it's going to cost you $65 a year. A little misconception there. Need to straighten that out. As the gentleman just mentioned a little earlier, we are getting money from Prop 30. The governor last week just signed the state budget, which we have a surplus. And we're going to have more money for schools. We're going to have more money for teachers' unions and pensions. So why do we need this bond? I don't think we need it. I really don't. I know that we're being told that the money is going to be used for infrastructure and school improvements. Wasn't that what Measure I was for just a few years ago? Where did that money go? What improvements were made to our schools with Measure I funding? I brought with me a pamphlet I'm going to give to you so you can pass around and look at from a neighboring school district where they have itemized where their money for Measure I went in improving in their schools and their district. I'd like to see something similar for Azusa, because as a taxpayer and a resident, I want to know where my tax dollars are going. And along with my friends here from Rosedale, us in Mountain Cove, we're paying a Melrose, we're paying association fees, and we're paying other expenses. So I really can't see why we need this bond measure. I think the better solution would be to negotiate with the developer of Rosedale to maybe not build the Rosedale School, and instead do some improvements to the Longfellow Elementary School, which is currently closed and only being used for a Head Start for a couple of classrooms. Those of us who live in affluent areas, most of us are going to send their children to either private school or to school districts outside the district, because we now have district of choice. Before Rosedale and Mountain Cove came along, I'm not picking on you, Sheila Nee, but your parents sent you to St. Francis of Rome, and then your high school was Westridge. You did go to Westridge, correct?
Westridge, but not St.
Okay, but anyway, you went to private school, and then you went on to MIT, and that's great. But for someone like myself, and my neighbors here from Rosedale, if you're, let's take an average ballpark figure here, of a house being worth $700,000, your property taxes are going to go up $455 a year for the next 30 years. Is it worth it? I don't think so. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm also a resident of Rosedale, and I second the gentleman who just spoke from Mountain Cove. We are already paying such high taxes. It's incredibly high taxes that we are paying for this property taxes. And now the school bond and increased taxes, I don't think we are looking forward to that. You know, it's like we are being punished to stay in Rosedale community. So, no, I agree with him. Our children are going to either private school or we are sending them to other schools outside the area. And to pay this kind of taxes, it's not fair to us. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Fred Machar. I'm here obviously with the opportunity to address the bond issue. Personally, as a resident of Rosedale area in Azusa, I do not want to repeat what we already heard. I don't think that we should be paying more for school purposes. But I take the opportunity here to address you on the issue of the school opportunity for Rosedale. You're one of the few cities that have the opportunity to have a potentially contribution by a developer. All I hear is only negative things. What the builders is not doing or what the school board is going to respond. I would like to see you guys get together, invite us all, and understand really how we can advance that subject. As mentioned before, there are many different ways of addressing the construction of school in Rosedale. It may not be constructed, but you guys should take advantage of this opportunity. I've seen in other communities where the school was not built, but the money came in, other facilities were built. We have a lot of opportunities. You know, this community facility district was formed in 2006. That's enough of a time for the school district to arrive with some kind of a report with the developer. Now, I know the developer was changed, they went bankrupt, and they're back now. I saw it in writing that the developer said, we'll be happy to address. They didn't agree or disagree, but they would like to review the mitigation agreement that they had with the board. That mitigation agreement addresses something about 300 plus students in the Azusa School District. Well, as mentioned earlier, why don't we change that with the developer? Why don't we ask them to review that? And maybe we change that from the students in the school district to demographics of the community of Rosedale. And you'll find out, as mentioned already earlier, that there are enough children there to support a school. But if that doesn't work, then please get together, invite us to a hearing, and we would like to know where you stand on that. Why wait so many years and do nothing? All I hear is just negative things. I would love to see something positive coming out of that. Plus, that school is very closely integrated with the future community park in that area, and you're holding back the opportunity to create some very exciting facility for the city of Azusa. So please invite us to a joint meeting. I've heard that you guys invited them and they said that you did not invite them. I don't care who. Just get together and really do something about it. I mean, I don't want to hear any more negativism. No court cases, no more negativism. Just resolve it and let us hear both parties talking to each other. So please do that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. I'd like to invite Don Fields, our bond counsel, up to the podium.
I thought I knew his face.
Don is from the Oric Sutcliffe Group and serves as the attorney who looks at the resolution agreement and looks at any bonds to make sure that they are legal.
Good evening. So you have before you the resolution calling a bond election for November 2014. I thought it'd be helpful just to walk through the resolution and summarize the way it's organized and the provisions, and then if you have any questions along the way or at the end, feel free to interrupt it. Project out what the tax rate will be over the life of the bonds, and that projection has to be under a tax under $60 per 100,000. Now these bonds are ad valorem bonds, and so they're based on property tax values. And so that is a projection test at the time of issuance. If assessed valuation increases at a faster rate than what is assumed in the projection, then the tax rate would be lower. If for some reason the projection had an assumption that was higher, then the taxes could go up higher than that. But the reason why these types of bonds receive such low interest costs is because they're unlimited taxes, and so you have experience with some the Melrose bonds, which are bonds that have a limited tax, and so when you issue those bonds, they're not as secure for investors and are usually sold at a much higher rate than the unlimited tax bonds. So there's a trade-off here on having the unlimited tax. This paragraph was put in the bond measure, not to deal with that $60 tax limit, but the 2.5% of assessed valuation. There's a limit on total bonds that may be issued at, and that is 2.5% of your total assessed valuation within the district. Now there's a chance that with the approval of the 92 million that you may be pushing up against that limit, and so what this does is authorizes you, if the voters approve the full 92 million, for you to be able to issue that 92 million.
But so to clarify, this doesn't mean that we would issue for these, if this bond passes, we would not, this does not allow us to issue more than 92 million?
No.
That's not what this is referring to, okay.
No. It would allow you to, if the assessed valuation at the time of the bond issuance puts you, if the bonds put you above a 2.5% of the assessed valuation, because what you do is you look at your total assessed valuation, you take 2.5% of that, and that is what's called your bonding limit. So if you take your outstanding bonds plus the 92 million, and that put you up above your 2.5%, this would allow you to proceed with what the voters authorized and issue up to that 92 million. So then we go into the section on the bond project list. Now, there are a number of things in the text before we get to the table listing the projects. It's to inform the voters that, one, the board can't delegate who decides which projects are done first, so that the board has to decide that. So it makes clear that the project list is on the list, but the board ultimately has to decide which projects are going to be completed first and get the first funding. Typically, since Prop 39 requires a specific project list, you have to have the project on the list to be able to complete it. So it's sort of a managing of expectations, because you usually want to have more projects on the project list than you expect to complete, because if some other funding from the state or some other source comes in and you fund some of the projects with those funds, you're still having items on your project list that you can complete with your bond dollars. So it's a balancing test of managing expectations of the voters and what is the priority, but having something additional on the project list if you're able to switch funds from other sources to change projects around in the funding sources. So then we get into the table, and it lists the specific projects that are authorized. Again, there's a Citizens Oversight Committee, so when a dollar amount is spent on a project, the Citizens Oversight Committee is there to make sure it matches up to an item in the project list. And I won't go through all of the bullet points there, but if there's questions on those projects, I'm happy to talk about those. The last part of the resolution is the tax rate statement, Exhibit B. And the tax rate statement is something that's required to be included in the voter pamphlet of all bonds that are repaid by ad valorem or property taxes. And what it does is it gives the voters a projection of what the tax rates will be at 3 specific times. In your case, the tax rate is projected to be the same in all 3 times, but the requirement is that you project what the tax rate will be after the first bond issuance, after the last bond issuance, and at the point where the tax rate is the highest. In the district's case, the $92 million that's included in the bonds and how the bonds will be structured over time, it's projected that the tax rate will be $60 per $100,000 of assessed valuation.
60 cents.
$60 per 100,000.
Okay. So it's, but then you have here blank, so it would be how many cents per 100? So 60 cents?
Oh, I'm sorry. There was over the weekend there was a revised resolution with the tax rate statement completed.
So what we have online is not what we're voting on.
Oh, and we have one other, just minor detail to change. So in here it should say, I'm sorry. So this statement right here, where there are blanks, it says, filing at the end of item number 1, it says filing of this statement is blank cents per 100, and then parentheses dollars per 100,000.
Correct. So
That should read.
in the first scenario, what the tax would be after the first series of bonds, the projected tax rate is $60 per $100,000 of assessed valuation, and that would be in fiscal year 2015-16. So if the bond measure passed in November of 2014, if the first year that you would be able to get on the tax rolls would be 2015-2016.
So but there also is a blank in front of cents per $100.
That's 6 cents per $100.
6 cents. Okay.
So 6 cents per $100 translates into $60 per $100,000.
Okay. So that's what's there on the resolution that we're approving tonight.
And then for number 2, it would be the same, except the years would be 2016, 17?
Well, the last bond issuance, I believe, is projected to be in...
The second one.
Yeah, that's the last bond issue.
Yeah, so the second scenario is that you have to project what the tax rate would be after the last bond issuance, and that is in fiscal year 21-22. And that tax rate again would be 6 cents per $100 or $60 per 100,000.
Thank you. And then number 3.
And so the third one is completed again with the 6 cents per 100 or $60 per 100,000, and that reflects that that's what the projected tax rate is for the full term of the bond.
And so the year then would be,
I actually revised it because when I was given the numbers on the projections, I revised it to say that it says the $60 per $100,000 of assessed valuation, and instead of the fiscal year, I said which is projected to be the same in every fiscal year that the bonds remain outstanding.
okay, thank you.
So I believe the only other change relates to, we took the brackets off the 92 million.
And can you say that phrase again one more time, which is projected to be the same in every fiscal year?
Why don't I just give you my copy?
Okay, thank you.
But then you don't have a copy now? Oh, she just.
So I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Questions? So I do have one question or a couple questions. First was, there was a question in the audience about how are the bond interest rates determined. So can you talk? I mean, you talked about how the annual rate is actually not. I mean, we issue bonds so that rate doesn't change. So, or I guess, but I think this is specifically talking about the interest rates on the bonds.
Sure. So there's a legal interest rate requirement for the bonds. The actual rate that the district will pay in the bonds, you won't know until you actually go to the market with the bonds and issue those.
Okay.
And so if the election were to pass in November, you would likely be going to sell bonds in spring of 2015. And so the interest rates would be set when you went to the market at that time. Right now we're at historical low interest rates, but we're sort of subject to the economic conditions on where they are going to be at that point.
So what is it right now?
Depending on your rating, and I'm sort of the legal counsel, so I'm not the numbers guy, but depending on the rating of a school district, and just like when you get a mortgage, you have a financial score. Ratings, school districts can be in the single A up to double A. There's maybe 4 or 5 districts in California that are rated triple A. That would have a factor on where the rates are, but the interest rates are right around 5%, and that's sort of an average rate, because when you sell bonds, unlike a mortgage where you have a final payment date, bonds are sold in what's called series, and so you have bonds. If you issue bonds in 25 years, you have bonds maturing in every one of those years, and the earlier maturities have lower interest rates. But right now, some of those first 5 years or so, the interest rates are at 1 or below, and then as you go out further in years, you get up higher in the yield curve, and so the interest rate's higher at those ending years.
So as high as projected, what? I mean, hypothetically, what's when you say it grows and it goes higher, and how far does it go up?
So the 25-year bonds could be around, right now it could be around 5%, and then as you get closer, it's the first couple of years are under 1%.
And then I'll just remind the board that we have, unlike we have not selected a bond underwriter, and they're the ones that will sell the bonds for us. And I think we've done that partially deliberately because there's some districts that have cozy relationships with bond underwriters and may not get the best rates from those bond underwriters. And so I think we're being fiscally prudent by making sure that once we do enter into those relationships that we're going to get as much as a competitive rate as possible. And then Linda, I do have a question for you. Could you talk a little bit in terms of the facilities plan that was developed and the role of the consultant and how that fit in with the priorities that were in the pyramid and that were also displayed in the
Okay, I would like to make a motion to approve bond election. Let's see, resolution 131495
as amended.
as amended.
Second. All right, there's a motion by Burke Hamilton, seconded by Yolanda Pena. Any further discussion?
Yes. This is an important vote. This was something that I had to think a lot about before I made my decision. Conceptually, I do agree that we do need something to address a lot of the needs and the issues and the problems that we have in the district. But I had grave concerns, as I shared that last time, about the process, about how we go about prioritizing in way of options as to what is it that we intend to do in the line of order. I would like to see a clear direction in that and build some sort of a consensus with the board to make sure that what we are doing we're all on board on that. So I do respect your decision. However, this is something that I strongly believe that we need to itemize, at least in some direction, in way of options. There are too many uncertainties. The language is too vague. It allows room for a lot of projects that is not necessarily part of our discussion or the master plan with facilities improvement that we talked about. These are important. These are my expectations, and I just don't believe, in my opinion, those are met. So because of that, I will not be joining them.
So Paul, I would challenge you. So what action on the project list have you not discussed as a group in the many times that we've met?
Oh no, we discussed it. All right, we did cover a lot of them, but I don't think we built consensus around it as to okay, hypothetically, if we were to go and do high schools, do we agree on that? That should be our priority, for example, or do we go back and do and finish the schools that we haven't touched? And if that was the priority, then I would have liked to see something along those lines. And I look at the list of the items that are covered here. It gives me a headache. It's too vague. There's too much going on there.